Well guys, I think we finally broke something on the Ugly Truck at an actual race. But the weird thing is, I didn't notice it right away. See, a few weeks back we went to Utah Motorsports Campus. They do roll racing a couple of times during the summer. We had a ton of fun. The truck performed well from a mechanical standpoint, if you don't consider the massive traction problems that we have. And the fact that we only won one out of like many races. But anyway, it was a blast, and the truck mechanically seemed to perform really well. It's about a 60-mile drive from the house. I drove the Ugly Truck there. I did 8 or 9 passes, and then we drove the truck home, and everything seemed to be doing what it should. And when I got it back, I just parked it on the cement beside the shop, and I haven't touched it ever since. But the other day I was out picking some weeds out of the little cement stone garden, whatever thing, and I noticed a huge puddle of oil that had like run from underneath the truck and started running off the side of the cement. And I'm like, first of all, I'm irritated because that's going to be a huge mess that I have to clean up. And second of all, I don't know where it's coming from. So the order of business for today is we're going to get the truck switched around, get the Ugly Truck inside, up in the air, and find out what we broke. Now, as soon as you walked out near the truck, you could smell that distinct smell of ATF. So I knew it was something with the transmission, but it drove fine. I actually took it around the block real quick, but clearly a huge puddle of ATF in the driveway. Spent a little bit of time trying to clean most of it up. Luckily, it didn't soak into the concrete a whole lot. I just took some rags, cleaned some of it up, and then I just had 2 like degreasers on the shelf. One was, we had one of those door-to-door sales guys come by, and he sold me on this. I don't know why I bought it, but he had a good sales pitch. So just one of those like organic degreaser cleaner things. So I tried that, and then I tried just the Dawn industrial degreaser I had on the shelf. And those definitely took away a lot of the oiliness, but they didn't do it. So after it dried, I tried some of this stuff. I bought this a year ago, but it's specifically for cleaning out concrete. So that stuff is actually drying as we speak. It's supposed to like turn into a chalky dust or something like that. I don't know, we'll find out. But either way, the driveway is seriously stained right now. Hopefully it looks a little better. But anyway, transmission wise, I found out what was going on, and this is actually something that I've never run into before. So let me crawl underneath and show you what's going on. So this is somewhat difficult to do with the way I have my camera lens because I have to be a mile away from the action. But as you can see underneath the pan, there's really no leaks to speak of. We just rebuilt this 4L80 about 1,200 miles ago. On the tail shaft, there seems to be no drips or evidence of ATF. I did see the vent line kind of runs over that way. I forget why I put it there, but there's a tiny bit of oil around there, but nothing that would drip as much as the oil that we have. And then if you look on the bottom of the truck here, it's covered in fluid. So it took me a minute to find this. I've never had it happen before, but on the back of the slip yoke, there's like a little press in, I would call it like a freeze out plug. Nope, can't do this very gracefully, but there's like a little freeze out plug that gets pressed into the slip yoke, and that kind of popped halfway out on one corner. So that's where the leak is coming from. I'll pull the drive shaft out. Thankful that it's nothing like major. This is a pretty minor problem actually, so we'll get that repaired. There's a few other things I want to fix while we're under the truck, and then we'll go for a drive.
That's not good.
Now, this is one of those deals like where you're really thankful that somebody out there is watching over you, because this potentially could have been a fairly catastrophic incident if we hadn't found this problem. So if the truck didn't start leaking, I never would have pulled the drive shaft, and if I didn't take the drive shaft apart, I never would have found the problem. Now, the leak is a fairly simple problem. I could have just tapped this little plug back in, maybe put some RTV on there, and that would have stopped it from leaking ATF. But the main problem is this guy right here. Like you can see the U-joint cap, it fits really loose in there. In fact, I don't know if you can tell, but like it wiggles back and forth. It's really, really sloppy, where I remember when I put this thing together, it was a nice tight fit. So what I'm pretty sure is going on here is this thing is just deforming under the power that we're feeding through it. Now remember, on the chassis dyno, this truck put down like 900 pounds of torque on 16 pounds of boost, and we have run it a little bit more than that. So this is a overseas made part I picked up from Amazon. Probably not the smartest thing to be running in a high power truck. If this would have, say, cracked, where eventually, you know, it would have, this little ear would have broken, the drive shaft would have been off-centered, and the transmission case could potentially split. At the very least, we would have spilled ATF all over the track or road. But I mean, I'm just thinking like worst case scenario, I would have been on the track, making a pass, you know, a bunch of oil spills out on the back tires, and you can figure out what happens from there. So I'm really, really thankful that we found this problem. Now my fix is just a temporary one, because when we get that motor in, we definitely need a much, much stronger than stock drive shaft. But for now, this will get me back on the road. This is the stock slip yoke from a four-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive actually. Let's see, this was from the Denali that I got my all-wheel drive parts from. And it just so happens to have the same yoke and the same U-joint, so I can swap this onto my drive shaft and we'll be back on the road. The good thing is this uses a larger diameter bearing cap than this one, because this was like a conversion joint for this style of yoke, where this is an original style, so it's a bigger diameter. And I believe this GM part here is going to be much stronger than this overseas one here. So I'm going to O'Reilly's real quick. I'll get a different U-joint and I'll swap that thing out, and we'll put our truck back together, take care of a few more odds and ends, and then we'll go. Let's do some burnouts. That's what we'll do today. We'll do some burnouts. Need more space. Now, I'll let you in on a little secret. This yoke is actually just a hair different from the one we pulled out in terms of length. So, oh, that's heavy. So I hope this works. What a pain in the butt this job is. All right, so the good news is we can fix the problem. Right there, you can see how there's all that shiny area sticking out. Basically, the yoke is too long. I was worried that part there was bottoming out, but it's actually the other side inside the transmission. So all we got to do is cut it, and we'll be back in business. So I actually remember last time I put this yoke in, I ended up doing the same thing. You can probably tell I trimmed it just a little bit. So all I'm going to do is line the two up, kind of make my mark. A little bit of tape will help me make a straight line. And we'll cut it and sand it, and we'll be back in business. All right, so all told, we cut about, I don't know, an inch or inch and a half off the drive shaft. The reason why this actually doesn't bother me is because, picture this is how it was before. With this bottoming out inside the transmission, we probably had at least an inch and a half sticking out on this side, probably more. So we actually don't lose any strength or spline engagement because we had all this extra basically hanging out at the end. So now it's just going to push in further to the transmission, and the splines do go all the way down inside the yoke there. You probably can't see it that well, but basically we still have all the spline engagement. It's just a little bit further in, but I also do have enough room, or I should have enough room for the drive shaft to travel in and out like it's supposed to. So, round number 2. So it is going to be a little bit hard for you guys to see, but you should know that we do have, come on, camera, point there. Yeah, you can't see much, and it'd be nice to have a little bit more, but there is probably a good 1/2 inch of compression available, which normally that'd be very important, but because this is a 2-piece driveline, the back half doesn't really move, so we are golden. Best glass cleaner in the world right here, and I should know because I used to be a glass installer many, many years ago. So we got the truck out on the road. I did check the trans fluid level, and surprisingly, even though we had that massive spill in the driveway, the level didn't go down all that much, so we're good to go there. The new drive shaft seems to be working, or the new yoke seems to be working just fine. Now underneath the truck, you saw me trim a couple of things. On the cowl tracks, I trimmed the ear off the bottom of the bracket. It is an adjustment hole that I do lose, but those little ears stuck down and it would hit pretty bad when I loaded the truck onto my trailer. And the bars are now sitting level in the middle hole, so I was happy to trim those off, get a little more clearance. And then the other thing, on the little cross member bracket up by the frame rail, I trimmed those off as well. Or I trimmed one of them because last time I unloaded this from the trailer, when I was backing down, it kind of hooked where it goes from the wood to the metal on the trailer, and it just kind of pulled and twisted that down. So I had to trim it up. I took my hammer, kind of rolled it up, so if it does just kind of slide on the trailer, it won't hook anymore. So we got that completely taken care of. We've got the U-joint in. Everything is running smooth. We've got plenty of space. I don't think I explained it too well, but the middle section of the drive shaft doesn't actually move because it has a carrier bearing on the back, and other than the engine just flexing a little bit, there's no way for that drive shaft to be pushed towards the transmission. But that being said, we still have about probably half an inch of clearance. The slip of the drive shaft, to compensate for the suspension, that takes place in the rear section of the two-piece drive shaft. So we got all that taken care of. The truck is running smooth, and now we have just a couple things left to do. So much torque. It's like effortless. Yeah. Tell you what, when I was a kid, 15, 16 years old, this truck would have gotten me in so much trouble. Oh boy, I love it. Just for reference, all these stripes were laid without using the brakes as soon as I started rolling. Two of them, I held the brakes at first, and the third one, the longest one actually, was just hammer the throttle and go. So thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the little burnies that the big block truck does, because it is just so much fun. Like, this thing, it'll spin the tires further than any vehicle I have ever owned or ever driven or ever built. Like, this thing, you get her up into third gear, probably would spin them in fourth too, but the 4L80s, you're not really supposed to romp on them in fourth gear a whole lot. But anyway, yeah, just it'll peg it in third gear as long as you dare to keep your foot in it, as long as you keep the thing straight in the road. This thing will just keep spinning tires. I love the big block, I love the turbo, and I cannot wait to get the 535 replacement installed in the UglyTruck. Tell you what, guys, if you are remotely interested in anything 8.1 related, you are going to want to know what's inside this box.